The snowflakes were like a swarm of white moths against the night sky, each one fluttering down to join the growing blanket of serenity that covered the deserted highway. My name is Emily, and I was the lone sentinel in my delivery truck, a vessel carrying goods through the silent world to a warehouse far beyond the horizon. The road ahead was a dimly lit corridor, flanked by the shadows of trees that stood like silent sentinels. The rhythmic tapping of snow against the windshield played a steady beat, a lullaby for the weary. But then, a flicker in the distance caught my eye, a light, not steady, but pulsating with an urgency that quickened my pulse. As I drew closer, the flicker grew into a blaze, a deep red glow that painted the snow in hues of danger. It was a fire, alive and hungry, consuming everything in its path. The snowfall tried in vain to quell the flames, but they raged on, defiant. I brought my truck to a halt, the tires crunching against the icy road. The fire beckoned, and despite the dread that clawed at my heart, I knew I had to investigate. I stepped out into the cold, the wind biting at my skin, and approached the inferno. There, in the heart of the blaze, was a small car, its form barely discernible through the dance of flames. The fire crackled, a chorus to the howling wind, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The car was marked by burn patterns that spoke of intention, not accident, a mystery unfolding before my eyes. I reached for my phone, the cold making my fingers numb as I dialed for help. The dispatcher's voice was a distant anchor in the storm, promising aid that seemed an eternity away. I was alone, a witness to nature's fury and man's folly. Then from the shadows they emerged. Two figures, masked and enigmatic, their presence an anomaly on this desolate stretch of road. They claimed ignorance, their voices muffled, their eyes hidden. My unease grew as they whispered to each other, secrets carried away by the wind. Time passed, each second stretching into infinity, the fire's glow casting long shadows across the snow. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the figures vanished, leaving behind more questions than answers. The sirens of the approaching authorities signaled the end of this surreal encounter. The car, now a charred husk, held stories that would never be told. I drove away. The image of the flames seared into my memory, a haunting reminder of the night when fire and mystery collided on a winter highway. The road stretched on, a ribbon of uncertainty beneath the relentless snow. I drove with a heavy heart, the warmth of the truck's heater doing little to thaw the chill that had settled deep within me. The fire had been extinguished, but its embers burned in my mind, a beacon of unanswered questions. As the night deepened, the landscape transformed. The trees became gnarled silhouettes, and the snowflakes turned to whispers of the past. I couldn't shake the feeling that the night held secrets, that the two masked figures were not mere phantoms, but harbingers of a darker truth. Hours passed, and the warehouse loomed ahead, a fortress against the night. I parked the truck and began unloading, each box a testament to the mundane reality that awaited me. But as I worked, a sense of unease crept over me. I felt watched, the weight of unseen eyes pressing down. Then, a noise, a soft thud from the back of the truck. My heart leapt, and I turned, expecting to confront a stowaway or a thief. But there was nothing, only the echo of my own movements in the hollow space. I resumed unloading, but the feeling of being watched persisted, a shadow I couldn't shake. The night wore on, and I completed my task. As I prepared to leave, a flicker of movement caught my eye. There, at the edge of the warehouse's light, stood a figure. It was one of the masked strangers from the highway, their face obscured, their intentions unknown. I approached cautiously, my voice steady despite the fear. "Who are you? What do you want?" I demanded. The figure remained silent, their stillness more unnerving than any reply. Then, without warning, they turned and fled into the darkness. I gave chase, my feet slipping on the icy ground. The pursuit was futile. They vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving me breathless and alone. The drive home was a blur, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. The encounter at the warehouse had confirmed my suspicions. The fire on the highway was no accident, and those involved were determined to remain shrouded in mystery. Days turned to weeks, and life resumed its rhythm. But the memory of that night lingered, a haunting melody that played in the quiet moments. I couldn't escape the feeling that the story was not over, that the flames had been a prelude to something more. And then, one evening, a knock at my door shattered the silence. I opened it to find a package, no return address, just a simple note. The truth lies within. Inside the package was a charred piece of metal, twisted and blackened by fire. It was a fragment of the car from the highway, a clue that beckoned me to delve deeper into the mystery. I knew then that my journey was just beginning, that the road ahead was paved with secrets and shadows. And so, I set out to uncover the truth, to piece together the puzzle that had been laid before me. The fire, the masked figures, the silent watcher at the warehouse, they were all part of a story yet to be told, a tale of intrigue that I was destined to unravel. In the pulsing heart of the city, where skyscrapers claw at the heavens, I navigated the concrete maze as a taxi driver, my dashboard lit by stories spanning over 15 years. Chicago, my urban kingdom for more than a decade, had honed my skills behind the wheel, guiding me through its intricate web. Yet, it was the neon glow of Las Vegas that first lured me into the cab driver's seat. Lost in memories of the glittering desert city, the biting gales of Chicago's infamous winters snapped me back to the present. The mercury plummeted, a cruel reminder of the city's merciless embrace. My ride, a far cry from the classic yellow taxis, was a symbol of the new gig economy, a personal vehicle crowned with a beacon of availability. This modern twist on an old trade granted me the liberty to choose my hours, though it came with the price of sharing profits with the company. It was a freedom I relished, until one fateful Christmas Eve when the veil of contentment was torn away. The city, draped in holiday cheer, contrasted starkly with the impending gloom that awaited me. A constant flow of passengers filled my night, their holiday generosity lining my pockets more than usual. But as the evening wore on and my shift reached its 10th hour, the gentle snowfall transformed into a tempest. Undeterred, I continued, pausing only to grab a bite at a local diner, fueling up for the journey ahead. The lively streets emptied, surrendering to the storm's fury. It was then that destiny presented a chilling twist. A hooded figure materialized from the shadows, hailing my cab. I welcomed the stranger into my sanctuary, slicing through the blizzard. Tension filled the air as he handed me a crumpled note with an address that evaded my seasoned knowledge. My GPS faltered, casting us into a void of uncertainty. The silence of the snow-laden street was shattered as the stranger's true intentions were revealed. A mere scrap of paper became a harbinger of doom, a gun pressed cold against my temple. Fear took hold as he demanded my possessions, each second amplifying the terror. I yielded to the assault, my mind awash with questions. Why such violence? What dark motive drove this act of savagery? He disappeared into the night's embrace, leaving me wounded, alone, and pondering the enigmatic darkness that lurked within the city's festive facade. The resonance of that harrowing Christmas Eve lingers, a stark reminder that even amidst the joy of the season, the city's underbelly conceals terrors beyond imagination. A tale etched into the icy veins of Chicago, where the holiday's warmth collided with the chilling ordeal of a taxi driver's descent into the abyss. The aftermath of the encounter left the city's festive lights dimmed in my eyes, their sparkle overshadowed by the shadow that had fallen over my world. The warmth of the season had turned cold, and the joyous carols that once filled the air now sounded like distant echoes of a forgotten harmony. I reported the incident to the authorities, but the blizzard had wiped clean any traces of the assailant. The city, with its millions of stories, had swallowed mine whole, leaving me with nothing but the chilling memory of a gun's cold touch and the piercing fear that had gripped my heart. Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm of the city resumed its relentless pace. I returned to my taxi, the streets once again a network of possibilities. But the ease with which I had navigated this urban labyrinth was gone, replaced by a cautious vigilance that scanned every shadow and questioned every face. Then, one ordinary night, as the snow gave way to the crisp clarity of winter, a figure stepped into my cab. A woman, her eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses despite the late hour. She handed me a note, and a shiver ran down my spine. It was the same address that had led me to peril on Christmas Eve. This time, however, the GPS recognized the location, and a path lit up on the screen. With a deep breath, I drove into the night, the city's towering buildings watching over us like silent guardians. The address led us to an old warehouse, its walls etched with the passage of time. The woman removed her sunglasses, and in the dim light of the cab, I saw her eyes, a striking shade of blue that seemed to hold the depth of the ocean. "Thank you," she said, her voice a whisper that carried the weight of secrets. "You don't know how much this means to me." Before I could ask any questions, she was gone, disappearing into the warehouse's gaping maw. I waited, the engine idling, the silence around me thick with anticipation. Minutes passed, and then she emerged, clutching a small weathered box. Her steps were hurried, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She slid back into the cab, and I drove her away from the warehouse, away from the questions that hung in the air like the winter's breath. As we reached her destination, she handed me the box. "Keep it safe," she implored. "It's more important than you can imagine." She vanished into the night, leaving me with the box, a Pandora's box of sorts, filled with the unknown. I opened it, and inside I found a collection of letters, their pages yellowed with age. They spoke of love, of loss, and of a mystery that tied the woman's fate to the address that had once been my undoing. The story was far from over. It was a narrative that wove through the fabric of the city, connecting lives and unraveling secrets. And I, a mere taxi driver, had become the keeper of its keys. I always loved the serene silence of a winter night, the way the snowflakes danced in the air before settling on the ground like a soft white blanket. But that night, the tranquility was different. It was suffocating, almost foreboding. My name is Emily, and I never believed in the supernatural, until that fateful evening at my family's secluded cabin in the woods. The day had been uneventful, spent reading and sipping hot cocoa by the fireplace. As night fell, the temperature dropped, and the wind began to howl, a mournful cry that seemed to echo my loneliness. I decided to retire early, hoping to find comfort in the warmth of my bed. But sleep eluded me. A strange feeling crept over me, a sense that I was not alone. I heard it first as a faint scratching at the window, like the brittle fingers of a tree branch beckoning me. I told myself it was nothing, just the wind playing tricks. But the scratching grew louder, more persistent, as if demanding my attention. I pulled the covers tighter around me, trying to ignore the growing unease in my gut. Then came the whispers, soft at first, barely audible over the storm outside, but growing clearer with each passing moment. "Emily!" they called, a chorus of voices that chilled me to the bone. I recognized none of them, yet they spoke my name with such familiarity, as if they knew me intimately. I mustered the courage to investigate, creeping toward the window with hesitant steps. Peering through the frosted glass, I saw nothing but the swirling snowstorm. The whispers continued, now accompanied by a gentle tapping, as though someone were trying to get in. Panic set in, and I raced to the front door, ensuring it was locked. That's when I saw her, a figure standing at the edge of the woods, her pale face barely visible against the white backdrop. She stared at me with hollow eyes, her mouth moving silently as if speaking words I couldn't hear. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest. This couldn't be real. I was alone, miles from the nearest neighbor, yet there she was, a ghostly apparition that seemed to grow closer with each glance. I retreated to the safety of my bedroom, locking the door behind me. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, now coming from all around me. "Let us in, Emily. We're so cold," they pleaded. I spent the night huddled under my blankets, the voices never ceasing. As dawn broke, the storm cleared, and the voices faded away. I emerged from my room to find the cabin untouched, the snow outside undisturbed. I left the cabin that morning, vowing never to return. The memories of that night linger, a haunting reminder of the unseen horrors that lurk in the shadows of a winter night. I don't know what visited me or why, but I do know one thing. I'll never spend another winter alone in those woods. The sun's rays did little to warm the chill that had settled in my bones. I packed my belongings with trembling hands, each movement punctuated by the fear that the whispers would return. The drive back to civilization was a blur, my mind replaying the night's terrors over and over. I tried to resume my normal life, but the shadows of that winter night clung to me like a second skin. Friends and family noticed the change. I was jumpy, easily startled, and I couldn't bear to be alone when darkness fell. They suggested therapy, thinking it was just stress or a vivid nightmare, but I knew better. I had experienced something unexplainable, something real. Weeks passed, and I began to feel a false sense of security. That was until I received a letter with no return address. The handwriting was elegant, almost familiar, and it contained a single sentence that froze my heart. "You left us in the cold, Emily. We haven't forgotten." I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The letter was a warning, a sign that whatever had visited me at the cabin was not confined to that place. I started seeing the figure from the woods everywhere, in the crowd, outside my window, in the reflections of mirrors, always watching, always waiting. Desperate for answers, I returned to the cabin in daylight, accompanied by a friend who knew the story. We found nothing out of the ordinary, no signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow. It was as if the cabin itself was holding its breath, hiding its secrets. As we were about to leave, my friend called out to me, "Emily, come see this." In the snow, a few feet from the cabin, lay a single wilted rose, its petals blackened as if touched by frost. I knew then that the spirits, or whatever they were, had followed me home. I moved away, changed my name, did everything I could to escape the memories. But every winter, when the nights grow long and the cold seeps in, I hear the whispers on the wind, calling me back to the woods. And I wonder if I'll ever be free of the winter night's grasp.